Okay. Are boring tunnels a scam? No. But let me tell you why. I'm Brian. Welcome to My Tesla Weekend. As a reminder, this is the full version that goes out on Friday on the second channel, My Tesla Live. And the condensed version goes out over the weekend on the main channel, My Tesla Weekend. It's whichever version you see on the screen. Oh, lost an item. Quick thanks to newest patron, Lars, and upgrading patron, Keith. Thank you guys for your choice to support the channel. So let's talk about it, huh? I get some comments from this guy, Paul. He gives me a lot of grief, but I don't mind. Cool your heels with the building a transit tunnel at 70% off. The Boring Company is a complete bomb. Its tunnels are pathetic shadows of a real workable transit tunnel with all the safety infrastructure required. Its tunneling speed is astronomically slower than state-of-the-art tunneling machines. Look at the time to build the pathetic few miles of the Vegas Loop. No amount of LED fairy lights can obscure the fact that the Boring Company is as big a bust as the Hyperloop. The man is a legit genius and a force of nature, but he does lay some gigantic brain farts. Come on, man. So yeah, I went ahead and wrote a detailed reply. I figured I would misplace it. So let's look at these. These complaints. I said they are cheaper because the diameter is 70% smaller. Or more. They are only 4 inches larger than what they use in the London tubes for the London Underground. The diameter of the boring tunnel was chosen on purpose. It's not just 11 feet bigger across, it's the cross-section itself that's massively bigger. The speed complaint is off base too, but yeah, the London Tube, 11 foot 8 versus the boring tunnel at 12 feet. To date, Elon Musk-owned company has focused on building tunnels to transport passengers, although moving freight could be a thing. Why make something smaller? Why make it less safe? Also, the speed complaint is woefully off base. The tunnel in Seattle cost $3.4 billion. It's only about 3 miles long. Yeah, 5.5 years to go 2 miles at a cost of over $3 billion. Vegas Loop was a pair of 1-mile tunnels completed in a year and a half for $55 million. Yeah. An average speed of 49 feet per day. And that was during the pandemic. That was during the lockdown. At worst, the boring tunnel in Vegas was 30 times cheaper and 3 times faster. And you guys may not know this, but it's already expanded to the Strip. Here it is in front of Resorts World. They're working on the station inside. This is a very cheap system. Should I just let this play? So, what are the potential points of failure? We've got to have all that safety stuff, right? The safety factor's misunderstood. Tunnels have a bunch of escape routes because tunnels, as they exist today, need them. They're dangerous places to be, full of fumes or, in the case of subways, a third rail, which will absolutely fry you. And even if you didn't have that, when you get out of the car, where do you go? Do you go into traffic to get hit? Is traffic bi-directional? In some tunnels it is. So they either have petrol fumes from a mess of unpredictable vehicles or high voltage lines to zap you. So what are the potential points of failure in a tunnel like the boring tunnel? If a vehicle simply dies, there's inconvenience, but nothing catastrophic or deadly. The failure is unlikely since there's no opportunity for road debris and maintenance is easy and predictable. If one were to somehow crash into the wall or another vehicle, it's not going to result in a fire. There's no gasoline to burn, and there's no exhaust. There's no third rail or overhead high voltage lines to electrocute you. And electric cars, even the Chevy Bolt, do not simply spontaneously combust. No, they, even those go up en fuego while charging. So in short, there are no escape wells because there's no need for them. That's why the design was approved in the first place. Oh, the tunnels are a death trap. Getting a tunnel approved, getting any sort of infrastructure approved, getting any sort of transit system approved is a monumental undertaking, and I assure you, it's been considered. In the event an evacuation was needed, you get out and you walk along the tunnel. Since it's a single-file tunnel, nobody's coming from that direction. Only traffic behind you. If someone's coming from ahead of you, that's a rescue crew. So while, Teslas presently used in the tunnels are not ideally suited for the application, they need to be trains. What you've invented is trains but worse. Yeah, maybe. Let's go ahead and loop that. Yeah, maybe. But trains are expensive. They're very expensive. And we're not seeing the final version of the boring tunnel vehicle. We're seeing the, for now, good enough version. Tesla's already working on a robotaxi form factor, which I believe is what will be adapted for the use in the tunnel. Something that doesn't hold 3 or 4 or 5 people, but, 10 or 12. Like a little shuttle bus, which is, in my opinion, what it's replacing. So the boring tunnel already meets the project requirements, as is, in terms of cost and capacity. So those improvements will just further increase the benefits of the tunnel. Let's keep going. By comparison, a current project underway, designed to expand the Los Angeles metro system by 9 miles, costs over $1 billion. $1 billion a mile. That's insane. So let's look at the cross-section again. Diameter of 12 feet gives you an area of, I have it here somewhere, 113. And now let's look, and here's the little guy. And by the way, they do have proposals for bigger ones that would be wide enough to hold 2 shipping containers on a specialized skateboard. But the boring tunnel is very small. Compared to Seattle's tunnel, 57 feet across. Now look at that though. Isn't that pretty? 2 lanes of traffic, separated. All kinds of access and pipes and utility stuff. It's great, but it's big and it's expensive. And that's because its cross-section is 2,463 feet. It's 2,000% bigger cross-section. 2,000%. That's outrageous. Wow, we're doing great on time. So yeah, the Resorts World Tunnel to the convention center is already opening next month. Well, this was in March. Maybe it's open or about open. And this is going to run down the length of the strip, the Vegas Strip, and then over to the airport. It's only about 9 miles. At some point, it's expected to go all the way to the Fremont Street Experience, the Stratosphere, with stubs for Circus Circus. Resorts World we saw is already there. And then it's going to head down and cut over. And this is not going to cost the city anything. Taxpayers are not on the hook for this. In fact, they're kind of loaning the money, some of it, to cover just the main line. And all of these guys, all the hotels, are paying for their own stations at whatever cost it is. So that means, and when it begins operating, the Boring Company has to pay royalties back to Clark County to recover the costs. It's expensive. It's expensive for somebody, but not for the taxpayers. And really, it'll be something, the longest ride, I believe, is $12 from here all the way down to the airport. It might be $12 from here all the way up to Resorts World, but that's still cheaper than a taxi, vastly quicker, and more comfortable, less stressful. You're out of the heat. If you've ever dealt with a cab driver in Vegas, I have great sympathy for you, because I've had that experience, and it was not good. It was scary and unpleasant. The guy was a lunatic. So why not just do trains? Trains already exist. They're already better. So the Boring Tunnel, the Vegas Loop cost about $55 million. The next closest bid was $215 million for an elevated rail system. There's no budget, man. There's no budget for that. The alternative to the Vegas Loop was not an above-ground rail system. It was no system, because they didn't have $215 million laying around. 4 times cheaper. 4 times cheaper. And this is something, as we can see, that is now able to expand. Yeah, and if for some reason they don't hit the capacity required, Boring Company has to pay potentially millions back. There it is. Looking so pretty. And everything they do has an eye for styling. This is what they had originally said the tunnels could look like. The footprint on that is very wide. It's a big chunk of window that doesn't appear to have any openings. But you get the idea. It'd be a shuttle bus, but closer to the ground. Easier egress because there's no heavy frame supporting the whole thing. That's kind of how it is. So let's get into the Q&A. Let's talk about this, huh? What did I miss? Quick thanks to my Patreons who get early access, bonus content, an ad-free experience, all that good stuff. Thank you guys so much for being a part of it. And thank you guys just for being here in the chat. That's cool, too. So why don't we put that video back on, huh? Where was it? There it is. Nope. And by the way, I'm not mad at you, Paul. I know you give me a hard time. I don't know why, but you got to look at it through this lens, I guess, is the moral of the story. There we go. All right. Unpopular opinion. Stevie Z says, unpopular opinion, Boring Tunnel Miami, not a great idea, because it'll probably be underwater in 10 years. The city, not the tunnels. But then you have dry tunnels between 2 wet places. Yeah, Miami's got some problems. Oh, well, let's build a seawall. The ground is limestone. It's very porous. The water comes up, percolates up through the city at high tide. It's a problem. Wendelin is excited. According to the Cybertruck VIN tracker, she may be getting hers in 2025. Hello, JJ. Good to see you. Wendelin says, we have Lower Wacker Drive in Chicago. Underground driving helps traffic downtown with 2 layers of roadways. In Seattle, the big tunnel they dug was designed to replace the viaduct, the elevated roadway, which was very old and in very serious risk of coming down in the next earthquake, which is about due. We generally get them every 20 to 30 years, and it's been over 20 years since the last one. Yeah. MD Hofstein wants to know, can you cook on the third rail? Yes. Rats, hobos, you name it. JJ. The Boring Company is the easiest thing to admit sucks, and yet the fanboys refuse to admit Elon can have a dud. If y'all can't admit this sucks, there's no hope for any criticism. Yeah, but I went through it. It makes sense. It's so cheap, it doesn't matter. The missing element is the shuttle buses. And those will come. When the van platform, or minivan platform, or that size platform, the one coming after the compact, will be exciting. There'll be a lot of uses for it, and I count this as one of them. It is cheaper to pay the $4.5 million penalty than it is to develop a new vehicle. I think you just make the tunnel straight and you can have a transforming trailer that puts the wheels fore and aft and supports along the sides. Should be fine. I know that was an early plan. I don't know if that's still the plan. Charlie says, I keep hoping them to announce building these around Anaheim Tesla factory to improve the flow or tear the place down. With that logic, y'all should prefer the Bolt because it's cheaper. Many people do. But the Bolt isn't available. The factory's been closed for a long time. It's a problem. Funny enough, transportation planners tend to be socialist central planners, and they love their trains. We discovered this in Boring Revolution Discord. I don't know anything about that. Wendelin says, I think this will help Vegas with tourism. Much better experience for people visiting. I tell you what, that whole taxi thing was really off-putting. And just being in the city, it's hard to get around. The last 2 or 3 times we've gone has been on road trips. And it was painful. We had our own car. It was still tough to get around. And not much fun. I hope they would sell day passes because I got 4 boys. 6 of us? Ooh, that adds up in a hurry. And what are we going to do? Take 2 separate ones? Yeah, room for improvement. Jeff wants to know, will the tunnels float up in Florida? No, because they will be embedded in the limestone. So no, that is not a reasonable concern. There's plenty of underwater tunnels already. It's the techniques to anchor them are well understood. Yeah, speaking of which, the big dig in Boston had a couple issues. Boy, was that a mess. And that was one of the ones they built was basically an underwater tunnel on piers because it was mud. It was built through the mud, underwater, like an elevated bridge through the mud. It was an engineering challenge, to say the least. Make vehicles that run on tracks. Single commuter cars would be great. When do we think, Mark wants to know, when do we think Las Vegas will allow full self-driving on loop, on the Boring Tunnel loop, on the Vegas loop, at the convention center? As soon as Tesla says it's ready. I believe they have not yet said it's ready. Even when full self-driving is really and truly done, the loop system would still require its own code. It could run on top of the code, but it's a very specific, narrow use case. Hockey Day says, boring tunnels used for freight of the ships and transported right through the mountains to a better distribution system. Yeah. Before the show started, somebody said, was it Jeff? Said what would be a great use for boring tunnels, since the diameter is so small, is use them for utilities. Just a utility tunnel. So everything isn't buried. You can fix it. You can improve it. It just works. Doing good on time. It works well enough, especially if the van is autonomous and roomy. Boring tunnel should be used for the Port of Los Angeles, under the city, to Vegas, and then distribute from there. Once you get out of the city, you don't need a tunnel. You can go above ground at that point. Cheaper, easier. At the very least, you could make an above-ground tunnel. Big, long corridor. Be a little weird, but it'd be cheaper than a tunnel. JJ, I did not say trains are socialist. I was reading a comment. I read all the comments, even yours. Jeff said he had his shoes melting to the pavement in Vegas as the heat was so intense. I haven't had that experience. I think the hottest I've seen in Vegas was 107, which is definitely unpleasant. Feels like you're in a convection oven. Not that I've been in a convection oven, but I've opened one, and the experience was similar. Vegas is often a total furnace. Moving along in a cool tunnel in an air-conditioned Tesla would be total heaven. Yeah, Vegas isn't really about going outside, is it? At night, I guess it is. Walking at night, after dark, down the strip, before it's scary, but after it's oven hot, it's quite a fun, touristy thing to do. Jeff says the BART tunnel and the Channel come to mind. Those work marvelously. Yeah, and the Channel is great. It actually, as I recall, follows a vein of clay across the channel bed, so it was not super complicated for digging. Some kind of particular geology they were tracking. It could be because trains are the most efficient way to move a lot of things quickly on a set path? Yeah, that's definitely true. But we're not trying to move 10 million people. This isn't like the New York subway, where you've got tremendous volume you need to address. This can work. They're already above capacity targets laid out in the contract. Socialism has nothing to do with it. Stop trying to make everything political. I don't know who's making things political. Certainly not me. I don't have an opinion on that. I don't have the headspace to worry about politics. It's too much to follow that aggressively. Hockey Day says, Hyperloop tunnels, major city to major city. I don't know if those are ever going to happen. They're neat, but I don't know if they will ever happen. Do they run utilities under the road? I mean, why not? Certainly have the space for it. Could certainly run something down there. Thaddeus said to JJ, I was surprised by the trend, an unending flow of people who don't believe profit and loss is a measurement of anything, like whether people value the service. MD Hofsty said that on the British side of the channel, the English Channel Tunnel, there were leaks and setbacks. Engineering troubles, it sounds like. Charlie's got it. Tunnels from the port to the Los Angeles outskirts, where the containers are then put on trucks or trains. Pollution at harbors is terrible, and flow could be great. Boy, I tried to see... I did some digging to find out how close we are to electrified cargo ships, and the answer is not close. There's one company that has one ship, and it has a range of like 22 nautical miles. Something like that. And it's half the speed of a traditional cargo ship they might have used. We ain't there yet. But that's also on, I want to say something very small, like 700 kilowatt hours. Very small pack, but still. The French used a waterproof boring machine. That seems like it would have been a good idea on both sides. What if they can use the boring machine on Mars to excavate habitats and storage areas? Yeah, Charles, we were actually chatting about that just before the stream went live. Elon has said that he's not interested in boring tunnels on Mars, but he says a lot of things. And it just seems logical. It seems like something that would make sense. It seems like something they would want to do. So I don't know why they wouldn't. JJ says, hydrogen cargo ships, though? Yeah. Yeah, because hydrogen is very energy dense. And for something like that, you don't even have to do fuel cell. You could just burn it. You could absolutely burn it. That would absolutely work. And that would, the ocean-going ships are very dirty. Now, I don't know what you do with the bunker fuel, the bunker oil that you've been previously using. Surely there's something better you could use it for, but I don't know. Cargo ships, I thought, were traveling near wind power speed. If only there was a way to make a ship that was powered by the wind. If only hydrogen was abundant on Earth. It's not. I mean, okay. I feel like you're being clever there. The problem with hydrogen today is the cheap stuff is made from fossil fuel. And that's better, certainly better than burning bunker oil, but it's not all the way clean. And you can do electrolysis to get it from water, using the power of the sun even to split the molecules. But that's more expensive. And if there's one thing we know about shipping companies, it's that it's all about the pennies. They measure them pennies. All right. We've got about 2.5 minutes left. If there's anything you want to say, now is the time to say it. Appreciate you guys being here. 29 people. Not too bad. Not too bad. Yeah, there are already volcanic vent tubes on Mars that would make, that would already be halfway built. Container ships average speed 14 knots. Car ships around 9 knots. Ooh, so going slower than that would be painful. JJ thinks that there are not many chemists on Mars, but I'm going to need a citation on that. All right. Well, I think that's quite enough. It's Friday, guys. I'm going to let you guys out a whole minute early. So what did I miss or misunderstand? I'm probably going to try and condense next week's podcast with Bear down for the main channel, see how that works. I got a lot of positive feedback on the condensed version I did last week solo, so maybe it'll work. We'll see. We'll see. Yes, Charles? It's better to burn out than fade away. Yeah, thank you, JJ. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate everyone playing nice in the chat. And yeah, I will talk to you guys soon. So stay tuned. Stay juicy. And I can't wait to hear from you clever robots. I don't know, Tuesday? Yeah.